Hi everyone. Today I am joined by Rishabh Goel, entrepreneur and biomedical data scientist, blending AI with healthcare. With experience at Merck and Genie Life Sciences, he has built deep learning models to improve patient outcomes. Now at Harvard Medical School, he is also the CEO of Bond Health, a startup using proprietary LLMs to match patients to clinical trials with over 90% accuracy. Bond is tackling a $13 billion problems and helping speed up trials while saving lives. Hi, Rishabh. Thank you so much for your time. Welcome to my podcast, Latency and Latte. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. So, since it's a latency and latte, so I have a quick question for you. If someone met you at a coffee shop, how would you introduce yourself?
So, I would say that I am studying biomedical informatics at Howard Medical School, and I'm the founder of a biotech startup called Bond Health.
hmm That's impressive. And would you mind telling a little bit about Born Health and what are you doing? How's your work aligning with uh, healthcare and AI? It's an amalgamation of AI and healthcare.
Of course, yeah. So, Bond Health is basically uh, an AI platform that accelerates patient recruitment for clinical trials. So, we
Mhm.
use AI to accelerate how patients are recruited for clinical trials in the simplest of words.
hmm That's great. Yeah, I can see there are a lot of loopholes in terms of healthcare records and yeah, I think I have seen clinical trials fail not because of bad science but because of the recruitment bottlenecks, and I believe Bond Health are working on that one. So how are you closing that loop using LLM? Are you using LLMs on a structured or unstructured clinical data? Like free text nodes are there, diagnosis codes are there, lab results are there. So how are you merging those two tools?
Yeah, 100%. So you're right in saying that clinical data includes a lot of structured data, which includes things like your age, your demographics, and things like that. But it also includes a lot of unstructured data. For example, all of the notes that a clinician writes for a patient, or the imaging for a patient, and all of that kind of unstructured data. And so far, it's always been really hard to accurately understand like what is in the unstructured data because the traditional NLP models, the natural language processing models, or the traditional machine learning models have never been strong enough to actually take out that structure from the unstructured data. But today, in the era of large language models and transformers, we have that capability to actually do something like that. And if we can fine tune our models and actually, train them on clinical text and on clinical background, they could actually be extremely accurate in finding the structured data from that unstructured data as well. So we combine the structured and unstructured data to develop a new meaning from that clinical data that was previously unfound.
Right, right. That's interesting because I believe you have been using retrieval augmented generation for fine tuning. Are there any more methods you are using for fine tuning? Since I believe it's a multimodal where you are using imaging, all those nodes, clinical nodes are coming into a picture. So, how are you fine tuning it?
Right. So retrieval augmented generation, which is RAG, is extremely important in developing the right models that have been trained on clinical context and can actually pull things from clinical context to learn from it while they're trying to answer the clinical questions that we have. But
Mhm.
apart from that, of course, like training it for multimodality is just as important. So we will come across a situation where the patient will also have imaging data, and it's extremely important to make sure that we can also integrate the imaging data as well as all the text data to be able to get a synthesized output.
Right, right. Yeah, that's impressive. And so, how do you handle the noise and variability in EHRs across providers? I mean, how are you harmonizing that kind of data? I mean, we have a lot of unstructured data. It's no joke, but how are you harmonizing that one?
Right. So I think that's a very good question because uh, a lot of healthcare systems may have different kinds of ways of inputting data, and one useful thing is that a large part of the US healthcare system actually follows very standardized methods of reporting data. So they use like an HL7 format or something like that through which it becomes very easy to actually pull the data, the relevant data that's important to you. But
Mhm.
again, every doctor is different in the way that they write clinical notes. So it's
Mhm.
really important to make sure that we have a model that does not get affected by this kind of bias based on just where it's been trained on, and it can actually adapt to new situations. So as we, partner with new healthcare systems and as we work with new data sets, we're able to train the model so that it could actually work with these new kinds of data sets as well. So that's how, like, as we work with more partners, our models get more and more powerful as we work with newer people.
Right, right. Totally makes sense. And you are just not building a product. I would say you are reshaping a very broken process in pharma, recruiting process, EHR records that takes serious system thinking. And what impressive about it, Rishabh, that you are doing this while at Harvard Med. So how are you balancing academic intensity as well as startup demands?
Yeah, I think, the fact that I'm at Howard Medical School, I'm at the biomedical informatics department, I think
Mhm.
it really complements the work that I'm doing because the department is focused on using AI with biomedical data and actually, you know, using it for many different applications. This is just one of those important applications. So it really complements the work that I'm doing in school. And I think it just gives me more motivation to continue working on it. And the great part is, apart from just working on this problem, I'm also getting a lot of support from people within the Harvard ecosystem that are aware of this problem and are able to support in whichever way that they can. So it's honestly been more of a boon than a bane to be in college while doing this.
Exactly. And just being in that ecosystem always boost your motivation. That's definitely there.
Right.
So, yeah, tell us about one of the deep learning projects you worked on at Merck or Gen 1E. What was the problem you were solving?
Of course, I could talk about what I was working at Genie as well. So basically, they had a drug for acute respiratory distress syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
and that is a disease that is extremely fatal, like around 40% mortality rate, which is really sad. And there's no treatment, no FDA approved treatment yet for that disease. And the company Genie Life Sciences was developing a drug for ARDS. In fact, they reached phase two for that drug. So they're currently in phase two and they're recruiting patients for it, and they had incredible results in the past as well. But one important question is, hey, is there a way for us to learn more about acute respiratory distress syndrome patients the moment they enter the ICU? Is there a way that we could know which ones are more likely to perform badly, which ones are more likely to not survive versus those that are more likely to survive, so that we could treat the patients accordingly? So essentially, I was using deep learning models to go through clinical data of these patients and identify which patients are actually more likely to have a higher mortality and which patients are less likely to have higher mortality. And we were actually able to find those two clusters of patients and accurately predict it on the first day that they entered the ICU. So let's say tomorrow an ARDS patient enters the ICU, this model can, using their clinical data that's readily available, accurately determine which category that patient falls into and accordingly give the doctor that kind of relevant information to make the right treatment uh, protocol for that patient.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting because at phase two, they were going out for a clinical recruitment.
Mhm.
Was that the situation?
Yeah, they were actually, they're also recruiting patients for their clinical trial, right?
Okay, wow, that's great. And so, what's been the biggest mindset shift since starting your master's at Harvard you have noticed?
Yeah. I think that the biggest mindset shift for me is that everyone is everyone in the Howard ecosystem is very motivated by solving challenging problems. And I think, thinking about it like just a year or two ago, I would think that breaking into the healthcare industry is impossible. Like unless you have years and years of experience, it's
Mhm.
just impossible. But I
Right.
think this kind of changed my mindset that hey, anything is possible. And if you really work on those hard problems, you can solve them. And I think that's what just gave me the confidence, and I think it's been a great experience for me to actually get that sort of mindset shift as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Rishabh. I think this is a great work, what you are doing, and this is a great motive because we are just fixing the broken system here, and it needs a lot of patience. It needs a lot of uh, mindset shift as well, because it has come from a traditional data sets. It has a bigger problem we are solving with that one.
Right.
Yeah. So how do you balance research intensity with staying creative? I mean, is there anything surprising about your experience in biomedical informatics?
Yeah, I think that uh, it's really important to sometimes separate the two, because when you really want to be creative and think of the larger picture and think about things that you could do differently, it's important to completely separate that from your research and just think about it on one day when you have nothing else to do. Just you're walking around thinking about it, noting down things that come to your head and working from there. And I think that's really important. And of course, like, given my background with the research, I think it's been helpful to uh, get the opportunity to actually work on different kinds of research. When I was at Genie Life Sciences, for example, I was allowed to really take ownership of my research and try and see which direction it could go in. So I think that kind of inculcated that idea of working on my own projects and trying to do the best kind of workflows that could help us achieve the best results. So I think that helped a lot.
Yeah, interesting, interesting. And if someone is just entering into this biotech today, so what advice would you give to them, especially for the beginners or anyone who wants to just dive deeper into AI plus healthcare space? Because I have seen a lot of people are now noticing they are using AI in healthcare. Earlier, it wasn't like that. But so, do you have any advice?
Yeah, I would say that it's really important to
Mhm.
actually get your hands dirty, because a lot of people, I think they get a bit scared that, this is medical data. I've never worked with this kind of data before. I probably won't even understand it, right? But it's not that complicated if you really spend a bit of time trying to understand it. And I mean, it definitely can get complicated, but there are things that, even a layman can actually work on.
Yeah.
And I would give examples such as things in Kaggle, like there are many Kaggle competitions working with kind of EEG data and things like that. There are many Kaggle competitions that you could really take part in, or there are many public data sets that you could use to actually just build projects with. So I think just get your hands dirty, build things, take part in competitions in AI, in healthcare hackathons, and I think that's the best way to really get uh, get started with this field.
Yeah, 100%. And since a lot of PubMed APIs are open source, you can use those APIs. You can have a clinical trial agent, you can
Exactly.
do that one. And there are many multiple tools. And whoever is not very fluent in coding, they can use Vibe coding tool, Cursor, Lovable. All those tools are there. They can just play around it. Yeah. So, is there any specific one book or podcast that change your mindset? Especially
Yeah,
you would recommend for beginners.
of course. So I have actually been reading the Steve Jobs
Mm-hmm.
autobiography, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that has really changed the way that I think about things. There's so many things that I learned about him from the book that I didn't know otherwise. Like, it's so interesting that I think a lot of people don't know that at some point he was actually removed from Apple
Yeah.
as a leader in around 1986 or 1987. And at that point, he went on and became the CEO of Pixar. And he actually was part of the team that developed Toy Story, which was the first blockbuster of Pixar. And of course, like, he was part of the team that developed all the uh, following blockbusters from Pixar that eventually got acquired by Disney, right? And I
Yeah.
think all of these are, it just goes to show that, yes, he had knowledge about software and he had knowledge about technology, but I think what's most important is the power to just ideate and execute. Because if you don't know how to execute well and how to get people to do work and how to get the work done, I think it's going to be really hard to actually move forward in whatever field, whatever you're doing. So it's really important to just execute, execute, execute. And I think that's the best thing that the book has taught me.
Absolutely. And this power of execution is just not for the beginners, it's for any level, mid level, senior level. There are different styles you can inculcate how you want to execute that power, but power of execution is one of the skill sets. I think, yeah, that makes sense. Totally makes sense. So, what's next for you on this wild ride? Studying and then the bond health. So, what is the next?
I I see myself working on bond health for the foreseeable future.
Mm.
Hopefully, we, like, I would say, 3 to 5 year plan is to really make it the industry standard in the US and hopefully in some other developing countries as well. And
Mhm.
within the next 10 years, hopefully make that industry standard for patient recruitment across the globe, where everybody's using this kind of AI native platform to improve their patient recruitment, make it much more efficient and much more cost effective.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we need that, and I'm sure a lot of other countries as well. They are looking to have more such tools. So, are you seeing any early signals that patients recruited through Born Health actually stay engaged? You got more engagements longer than traditional methods.
So we haven't worked on a particular partnership yet with real world data, but we have actually done research with one of the data sets that had around 300 patients. And our method actually showed 90% accuracy with matching patients to the clinical trials. And the same thing, which would have taken about an hour for a person to manually go through the patient record, it can now do in seconds. So it's almost like a 60 time faster method of doing this. And of course, the accuracy is also better than the human annotation level.
Interesting. That's great. So, how can people connect with you if they have any questions, if they want to contribute, or if they want to collaborate, or if they have uh, any other questions related to AI healthcare space? How they can connect with you?
Of course, so one, my LinkedIn's always open to DM, so feel free to DM me on LinkedIn. Feel free to email me at rishabh@bondtrials.com. And also you could feel free to reach out to me over text, and I can share my phone number as well, so that anyone could have access to have any conversation, learn more about Bond Health, and hopefully contribute at some point.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Risha, for your time. I really appreciate it. I look forward to chatting with you more.
Of course, thank you so much, Ranaka, for your time as well.
Thank you.